Thus, without further ado, Jeff Musgrave of the Peak Antler Company. Peak, PeakAntlerS.com, just like it sounds. PeakAntlers.com, the Peak Antler Company. Jeff, how are you doing today in beautiful Colorado?
I'm doing amazing.
Pleasure
Beautiful
to
up
speak.
here. Can't complain. I live in God's country, so
That's exactly right. You are, and very well said and aptly said. I I love reading about what you do. I'm thrilled that we are working with you now. So thank you for the opportunity. And I love going back and reading your first article or feature, if you will, that will be in the upcoming spring issues, and then hopefully onwards. But and also is online right now on the website, of course. And what you do is just, it's so fantastic. It's obviously very unique. And that's sculpted for scale, custom antler lighting and elevated mountain homes. And one of I'll let you do most of the speaking, of course, because it's what's so interesting about it is, and you do such a great job in delivering your article is from the get go, in that the lighting is not only the lighting itself can be the focal point of, an exceptional estate or home, if you will. And then when you have an elevated mountain home, whether it's in Colorado or wherever it might be in certain parts of the country, a custom, like really elevated estate, and then you're accentuating it or taking it to the next level with custom antler lighting, it's a whole different ball game. So without further ado, please, one, how did you get into this? And two, uh, please just describe more. That really.
when you walk into a home, especially a big mountain home, where do your eyes go? Do you look at the floor? Do you look down? No, you look up. You look at the vaulted ceiling. You look at the architecture, the structure of the room. So the first thing you see when you walk into a home is the chandelier. What's the first thing that's going to catch your eye? It's going to be that piece up in the air, not the piece down on the floor. Then you'll look at the couches and everything else in the house. But um, so just, to comment on that, where did I start? Gosh, I moved here back in 95 and I was actually a Harley mechanic
Oh, nice.
working on bikes and, kind of had that dream as a young 20-year-old. And I needed some side work. So I went to work for a guy who was doing these chandeliers. He had a little shop downtown. I worked for him for 7 years and I kind of learned the business and I learned how to do this and I was kind of good at it. I was better at it than I was as a Harley mechanic. And so I, split off from him after 7 years and launched Peak Antler in '03, and said, I think I'm going to go for this. I think I'm kind of good at it. So I started Peak Antlers in my garage and just one step at a time worked my way up to having 6 employees and we're kind of one of the major guys out there doing this work.
What a
Um,
great entrepreneurial American story. I mean, seriously, kudos and congratulations. It's absolutely fantastic. And further, so so rock and roll American in that you went from repairing Harleys and then
I
to
still ride. I like working on my own bike. I
well,
just didn't like working on other people's bikes all the time.
once
So
you got Harley in your vein, I mean, it's in your veins, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, but what a great story. And so when you first discovered working with it and doing it, you just
It
like a
just
savant,
kind of
like a savant,
clicked.
you just had it, right?
It just kind of clicked. And it's an odd thing. I couldn't paint to save my life. I cannot draw you a picture.
Huh.
But you just put random things in front of me and I go, if I put it this way and I put it here and I did that. Oh, look, we got a thing. This is kind of neat. And so it just was kind of like giant puzzles with random pieces, and you just kind of got to figure out how to put them together. And that was something that, a bit therapeutic, but I just kind of clicked with and I was good at.
No,
And
like
so from there, it just kind of compounded. And, I never took a business class in my life, but I think I'm pretty decent at business. And I learned how to create to meet customer needs and create new designs that I think they were thinking of. A lot of people can't quite visualize all the time. So new technology like AI and Photoshop, and where we can send me a picture of your house and we'll just put one of our chandeliers in that photo for you and show you what it's going to look like. Things like that have really helped us to grow, to be able to help people make that connection between what they think they want and what they can really have and what it'll look like in their home. And
Absolutely.
so,
And that must be really exciting for you with new technology and how
mhm.
you can accelerate the process, correct? And
Yeah.
further, it opens up. I would imagine it opens up the potential clientele immensely, correct? Because you're engaging with that many more people, or you have the opportunity to engage with that many more people in a real time way, almost like intimately.
I would say, one of the biggest challenges is that people can't quite visualize what they want or how it would look or what's the right size for the house. And so some of this stuff, technology has allowed us to be able to bridge that gap between what you think you want and what it would actually be. And so that's been a very beneficial thing for us, to be able to help people bridge that gap. Sometimes I can describe all day long to you what it should look like,
Yeah,
but you can't put it in your mind. So
absolutely. Yeah.
playing around with Photoshop and things like that really make a difference.
And then, especially with something as unique and magnificent, beautiful as antlers, it's
Mhm.
right because with antlers, it depending on who you are or just your life, just the one word can have so much different imagery for a person, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely, depending on what movies you grew up with or whatever it might be, especially with antler, right? You say antler to me, and I immediately I think of a buck, right? I grew up. My father used to take me hunting, and so antler was buck. That's just my immediate go-to. So I think of a big, beautiful white-tailed deer with the huge rack, etc. But you could say to another person, and they may have never even seen a deer. You know what I mean?
And I run into that all the time because we work with a lot of exotics, deer from Spain and
Yeah.
New Zealand and Asia and different things like that. And people will come up and goes, "What is that? Is that a baby moose?" I was like, "No, that's a fallow deer. It's a Spanish deer." And so then I got to do a little education. But some people buy it because they're hunters and they want something like made out of stuff that they know.
Yeah.
Other people just buy it for the pure aesthetics of it. What looks good? Put some fallow deer in it, put a moose in there. Never hunted a moose, but I think they're neat. So make sure there's moose antler in it. So, we can kind of hit all those high points for people, and that's what makes it really fun and creative, and every piece we do is unique.
And thank you for touching upon that. You're very well spoken, by the way. Is with respect to, I think, very important to touch upon further now that we're speaking is in terms of where the antlers come from and the work that you put into basically, what's the best way to put it? Cultivating the antlers and the process behind that.
Well, antlers come from deer and elk, and they shed them every year. And I tried to get my kids to grow some for me, but they never did come through. So I actually have to buy them by weight. So they're actually a market out there. They're sold by the pound. And so I buy 10,000 pounds a year of antler.
And
So
these are all naturally shed.
naturally shed, picked up out of the forest, collected every year. They shed in the springtime. So there's guys all across the country. I buy antlers from Canada all the way to Texas, all the
Wow.
way through the Rocky Mountains where I get my antlers.
That's amazing. You said 8 to 10,000 pounds a year.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. I was that's obviously I along with myself, I don't think that most people know that that is an active market from Canada down
It,
to
it is an
it,
active market. I would say majority of antlers collected, probably about 80% are shipped over to China, ground up. They make tea out of it. They do different herbal things with it.
huh.
Crafters like myself buy about 20% of the market, go to Craft Antler, and we make furniture and fancy chandeliers.
And with respect to when someone first is very fortunate to learn about you and Peak Antler, they reach out to you, you begin engaging with them. Are they typically at a certain point with respect to the design of a new home, or is it typically explain the process a little more? When you first begin engaging with someone and they decide they want their beautiful, elevated, typically mountain home to have as one of its core integral components, one of your works of art.
Well, I usually start with, sometimes people come to me and say, "Hey, I like this piece. This is what I want." Okay, that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Other people say, "Hey, here's my house. We're building a new home. Here's, the roughed in size, here's the ceiling height. I ask a lot of questions like that. What's your door size is a big one. Can we get it into the home? Always a challenge.
Right.
Um, but we'll start with the room and I'll say, okay, this room needs something about this size. If you go too small, the ceiling's going to swallow it up and you're not even going to notice. It's not going to be that centerpiece you think you're buying.
Right.
If you go too big, well, it's just overpowering the room. So, I will help people based on the size of the room to try to pick a size that's going to work. And then within that size, what designs do you like? Because many times you can look at some of my stuff online and go, hey, I like this, but it's not big enough. Can we make it bigger? Yeah, we can. Here's what it looks like bigger. I'll pull up some custom photos from my last project or whatever. So it's a lot to do with the room size. Is it going to go over a table? If we're going to go over a table, we're going to hang it lower. How big is your table? Let's build the chandelier to fit the table. Then it
Yeah.
fits like a glove into the space. So going to be in the great room over the couch and you're going to be walking under it. Well, it needs to be hung a little higher, probably in line with your upper windows in the room or something. And so how much space do we have there? We can calculate up what the better size to fit that space is. And then we just pick a design and we pick a size and then we go with it.
And how long does it, on average, I know each one can be different, but if it's how long on average does it take to create that perfect custom chandelier?
I mean, our smaller pieces, we may have them working through the shop over a time of a week or so. Some of my bigger projects can take 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, it's still not too bad.
Yeah. We're rather efficient, but it takes time. There's a lot of detail. I mean, I'm digging through a pile of 500 mule deer antlers and trying to find the perfect ones that are fit perfectly together to make that nice geometric shape or pattern that I'm trying to create. So, there's a lot of time in just selecting and finding the right pieces to go together. And then there's putting them together and then we drill them out, we run wires inside. So the finished product, you see no wiring, it's all internal. All you see is the natural antlers interlaced together and it just has a beautiful look to it.
It's so fantastic. I mean, you're an antler artist, really. And isn't it amazing how it's such a beautiful and amazing and spot on, perfect American entrepreneurial story. But there you are cranking on Harleys, which you dig. But if life hadn't dished you that one slight random curveball, you would have never, in no way would you ever have thought to yourself, I think I'll give antlers a shot,
There were 7 years that I didn't think I would give antlers a shot. There was seven
Wow.
years of me working for somebody else. And at the end of that run, it was just like, I'm really kind of good at this. Maybe I should really give this a shot. And it was that entrepreneurial spirit that said, I got nothing to lose. Go for it. Let's just try it, see what happens. And
Good for you though, Jeff, because most people don't have that. They don't. They really don't. They won't. They really don't. In all its simplicity, but that's exactly right. And you're fortunate that for you it seems so simple. You're right. What have I got to lose?
what I got to lose?
And what ultimately though that most people don't realize is what you have to lose is not doing something you were meant to do and never even knowing it. Never even
And
knowing it.
never even known I missed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And granted, you could have become one of the greatest Harley repair guys of all time. Yet, at the same time, this was what you were meant to do. And it's so unique. It's fascinating. It's really, really great. What is if you may not have just one. So maybe it's three or two or three or five, whatever. But what are a few that of the antler projects that you've done that really just that you hold in your heart as they were really special for whatever reason? They were almost perhaps career defining for you personally because you achieved something you hadn't done with respect to that design or
You know, Usually when I get this question, is what's your favorite piece? And I say it's always the next piece. It's the next creation.
answer.
It's the drive to do something new.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as my past pieces, what are ones that I really so gosh, 2010 or so, I did a 9 foot tall life-size sculptured elk for
Wow.
Bass Pro, and then I did a cow elk next to it. And so it was a pair. I called them Samson and Delilah, and I did it for Bass Pro, and we shipped it off to Missouri. So,
Wow.
but a 9 foot tall life-size sculpture of an elk was pretty cool thing to
That's
do.
amazing.
Yeah.
How did you do the life-size sculpture of the elk, if you don't mind me asking?
Very carefully. I mean, I literally had pictures of elk and I just was looking at body structure and shape and going, okay, there's a bulging muscle here in the thigh. Let's put a deer there. Okay, there's elk, coming down for a leg. Let's bend his knee here and then put his hoof down and secure him. And so I just had a big 8 foot pallet, basically 8x4 pallet I built. And then I just started building like the legs are going to go here and we come up and then here's the belly and started working my way to the top and trying to keep everything in proportion on how I could tell it in the picture and then put a big elk rack on top and he came out pretty neat.
Yeah, you truly are you are an artist, really. I mean, you are an artist. You're obviously, yes, you're creating lighting, yet your trade and as your core business, that you are literally an artist. Everything you just described, it would be the same as if I was speaking to a sculptor, so to speak, about how they came up with a piece for our art magazine. It really is that, it almost
Yeah.
had nothing to do with the lighting. It was about the sculpture, and if you look at your pieces, which I absolutely love looking at your pieces there, each one, it's you look at it, it's like this is a work of art with lighting, really.
Right. So each chandelier, I'm sculpting it the same way I sculpt that elk sculpture. I'm thinking that through the same process, how do I get this shape and design and this pattern? And so we're sculpting that design. And then, with the lighting, the next struggle is, okay, now how do I engineer the lighting harness to go into this? And so that everything lights up and we can hide all the wiring. And
Yeah,
so that's stage two. So the chandeliers have two levels of being creative and versus the sculptures are just building them.
right. And then with respect to when you are that Bass Pro one's a great story. That's and again, along with the hunting I mentioned, in terms of when you say antler, what comes to mind? I grew up hunting. I grew up fishing as well, and so Bass Pro is a name I know incredibly well. If you grew up fishing, you know the name Bass Pro, and those shops are monstrous. Just curious, how did that come to fruition? How did they reach out to you?
I worked with a buying rep, so none of my stuff was sold through Bass Pro. I decorated their lodges, I decorated their conference rooms, things like that. I was working with their designer in those projects.
Gotcha.
And so I don't really know where those elk ended up. I know I shipped them to Springfield. And I don't know if they shipped them to another store after that, or if the owner just kept them, or what happened. But
It would be interesting to find out.
it would be. And I've looked online to see if anybody took pictures of them or selfies with them, but I have not found them anywhere. So
There's a good chance that, which would be a huge compliment, as one of the owners saw them, simply took them home and said, "Mine."
mine, it may be.
Do you typically deal with the homeowner themselves, or is it a combination of the homeowner and the architecture designer, interior designer?
All three. I've done, we do work with homeowners directly. They contact us directly. We work straight through them, no problem. I've worked with a lot of interior designers. I have stores around the country that carry my line in various furniture stores, mostly small mom and pop stores. So I have a location outlet in Telluride. I have a location in Jackson Hole. I have, one in Sedona, Arizona, of relationships with other store owners to put my product in there and show it. So
Fantastic. And then somewhat of perhaps a loaded question, but then again, I could be absolutely incorrect. Is it primary? What percentage of the business of your business of the homes are mountain estates versus other geographies, or is it primarily mountain estates?
uh, I would say primarily mountain estates, but I mean, I've sent stuff to Florida. I've sent stuff to California. I've sent stuff to Japan, Egypt, Philippines, all over Europe. Uh, so
Yeah.
I've sent stuff all around the world and all over the continental United States. So
Right, because I could envision them being just as much, even depending on, of course, the coloring and whatnot, being even more fantastic in a South Beach, Florida, Miami, massive beach estate. It would almost be more. It would catch you more off guard to a certain extent. Whereas in the mountain estates, that you almost expect a little bit more, right?
yeah, you know, uh, the first chandelier I ever built, the very first one, I built for my mom. And her house was a Victorian style home.
Okay.
So I used shiny brass candles to draw into that Victorian look with some big whitetail and made her a small little chandelier for her dining room. And that was the first one, but I had to bridge that gap with the Victorian to make it work in her house. It wasn't going to be all Western or cowboy. So
And that was the first one you did just to test yourself to see if you could do it, or
yeah. Because when I started with this other, when I first started out working for this other guy, he was the builder and I just did the finish work and stuff like that. And so I said, could I come in on the Saturday and kind of try my hand at doing one for my mom, and I'll just buy the materials from you and I'll do the work on my own. And he said, yeah, sure, go for it. And I built it. And he goes, that's pretty nice. You should just start building all of them for us. And so he kind of started phasing out, and I started taking over building and construction and everything at that point. But
you
that
just
was the
made
first one, and I just did it for my mom.
you just made this your entrepreneurial story even better. I mean, because that easily could have been a situation where he looked at you as a threat to a certain extent. Like if the timing hadn't been right with respect to him phasing out and basically
Hmm.
bringing you into the fold, it could have been completely the opposite. And he said, "Hit the road," you know.
Yeah, me and him had those kind of conversations too. So it went back and forth, but that's his being an employee working for an employer
It
stuff.
was meant to be, and kudos to you. It was your idea to create that for your mom. What a great story, man! Seriously, such a fantastic story. And then, do you have certain times of the year where is it busier during holidays? Is it busier certain? What is the best time of the year I'm getting at for someone listening that's realizing this is something that I want in my current homes, or the new place that we're getting, wherever it might be, is what is there a better time of the year for people to contact you, or is it just typically ongoing? Or are there certain times of the year where you're just too busy?
I mean, just like any business, it ebbs and flows. We really don't have a cycle that it pinpoints to. I mean, so much of my business is built around the building market. So when building is high, we're busy. And when building slows down, we slow down.
Okay.
So there's not a particular month of the year I say, oh, call me on this month and we'll be slow.
Yeah.
So far this year, last year was a slow year. This year, January, February, were record-breaking months. So we're ramping up right now, and we're booked out about 3 months worth of work in front of us right now. So, uh,
Fantastic. That is
I
great
mean,
news.
we range. I usually tell people, 8 weeks on average, but eight can easily be 12, and sometimes it can be four. So,
What is the most, or have you had a request for a specific type of perhaps antler that was almost mind-boggling, that really took you to push the envelope, so to speak, to find that exact type of antler?
uh, the most challenging ones are when somebody brings me a picture of a faux chandelier or faux lamp or something. And they're like, I found this on Wayfair. Can you make it out of real antlers? It's like, well, those aren't actually real antlers. That's all just molded together. Deer don't grow that way. Elk
I
are
guess
much
it's an
bigger
honest
than
question.
that.
It's an honest question if you don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I have to do a lot of educating. Like, here's what antlers really look like, and here's how they really go together. So we can do this, but it doesn't look like that.
You just made me think if someone had asked you for a unicorn antler.
Um, Funny story. I had my office manager, Jim. He was the first office manager when I finally decided I needed somebody to answer the phones and do all the paperwork so I could stay doing the stuff that I do
Finally got to
best.
that great problem to have moment. Yeah.
And when Jim left me, we took an elk skull that somebody had sold us, and we'd cut the antlers off because it was a hunt that they had done. And I mounted an antler right on its forehead, and then we painted it, and we made a unicorn, and we mounted it on the wall, and we gave it to him as a going away gift. So we made him a unicorn to take home.
Did you turn it? But did it have lighting in it, or just
No, we didn't do any lighting. We just did some colors and dressed it all up and made it look like a real unicorn mount. So
That's fantastic. And I would guess that he enjoyed
yes, he did. Very much so.
it. I love it, Jeff. Is there anything? I can't believe I'm speaking for 30 minutes. I could speak to you all day. Uh, yeah, and that's such great news that you are having an amazing year. Jeff Musgrave, of the Peak Antler Company, Peak Antlers, PAKANTLERS.com, just like it sounds. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have during this first conversation we've had, or anything that we didn't discuss that you'd like to?
Uh, I don't know. There's just, whatever questions you hit me with, but we love what we do. We have a great time doing it, and we're just happy to work with anybody. Bring your ideas, bring pictures, draw it on a piece of paper if you can. Say I want something like this, and we work through the process with you to figure out what we can do.
Love it. All right, Jeff. Thank you so much for your time. I hope we're able to do this again very soon. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you and working with you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, my friend.
All right, you too. Thank
Take care.
you.
Talk to you soon. Bye bye.